What if I told you that death is not chaos, but order? What if the moment you die, you don't enter a void of confusion and darkness, but instead step into a precisely orchestrated system governed by 7 immutable spiritual laws? Laws that are as consistent and inevitable as gravity. Laws that every soul, without exception, must face. What if your experience after death is not determined by which religion you belong to, how much money you had, or whether you were good or bad? What if it's determined by 7 universal principles that operate the same way for everyone, from the saint to the sinner, from the believer to the atheist? What if these laws are not punishments but teachers, not arbitrary rules imposed by an angry God, but natural consequences of how consciousness operates in the spiritual dimension? For over 40 years, Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, conducted thousands of readings while in a trance state. And through these readings, he mapped out what happens after death with stunning consistency and detail. He revealed that the afterlife is not random, it's not chaotic. It's governed by 7 spiritual laws that every soul encounters in sequence. These laws determine how you process your death, who you meet, what you experience, what you learn, and ultimately where you go next. They're as real and as unavoidable as the laws of physics, and understanding them now while you're still alive can transform how you live, how you love, and how you prepare for the journey every soul must eventually take. Today, you're going to learn these 7 laws. You're going to understand what happens in the moments, hours, and days after you die. You're going to see how the universe processes souls with perfect justice and infinite compassion. And you're going to discover that death is not an ending or a punishment, but a school, a place where consciousness graduates to higher truths. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what awaits you when you die. Not vague spiritual concepts, but specific, sequential experiences that every soul goes through. You'll understand the order of the afterlife. And that understanding will free you from the fear that imprisons most of humanity. So let me ask you, are you afraid of what happens after death? Of judgment? Of the unknown? Of facing the consequences of how you lived? Because for the next 30 minutes, I'm going to show you that what awaits you is not arbitrary punishment or random chaos. It's a perfectly designed system of 7 laws that ensure every soul gets exactly what it needs to continue its eternal evolution. Let's begin with the first law, the moment of truth that every soul faces the instant it leaves the body. Law 1. The law of recognition. Seeing yourself without masks. The first law that every soul encounters is the law of recognition, and it happens immediately. In the first moments after your consciousness separates from your physical body, you see yourself with absolute clarity for the first time in your life. Not how you wanted to be seen, not how you presented yourself to others, not the carefully constructed image you maintained, but the truth. The unfiltered, undeniable truth of what you actually were. Edgar Cayce described this as standing before a mirror that cannot lie. Every mask falls away. Every justification dissolves. Every self-deception becomes transparent. And you see yourself as you really were. This is not God judging you. This is not some external entity condemning or praising. This is your own soul recognizing itself, understanding itself, seeing clearly, perhaps for the first time, what it actually became during its time in physical form. Cayce taught that consciousness is a builder. Every thought you think, every intention you hold, every action you take, these construct the reality of your soul. During physical life, You can hide this construction from others and even from yourself. But after death, when the physical illusions fall away, what you built becomes completely visible. If you spent your life cultivating love, compassion, kindness, service, this is what you'll see reflected back at you. Your soul will shine with the light of those qualities. You'll recognize yourself as a being of love because that's what you built. But if you spent your life cultivating anger, resentment, selfishness, cruelty, you'll see that too. Not through the lens of justifications or excuses, but as it actually was. The impact of those qualities on your soul's development, the darkness you constructed through your choices. Let me be clear. This is not punishment. This is recognition. This is truth. And every soul needs this moment of absolute clarity before it can move forward. Think of it like graduating from school. Before you receive your diploma, you receive your grades, not as punishment, but as feedback, as honest assessment of what you learned and what you didn't. The law of recognition provides that honest assessment. One of Casey's most powerful readings described a man who died believing he was a good person. He'd been successful in business, respected in his community, well liked by friends. From the outside, he appeared to be living a good life. But when he faced the law of recognition, he saw something different. He saw that his success had been built on manipulation and deceit, that his respectability was a performance, that his friendships were strategic rather than genuine. He saw the truth beneath the surface, and it devastated him. Not because he was being punished, but because he finally understood what he had actually become. The gap between who he thought he was and who he actually was became painfully clear. But here's what's crucial. This recognition is not the end. It's the beginning. Because you cannot change what you don't acknowledge. You cannot grow beyond patterns you don't see clearly. The law of recognition provides the clarity necessary for all the growth that follows. Some souls see themselves and feel joy, recognition of a life well lived, of love genuinely expressed, of service honestly rendered. These souls move through this first law quickly, celebrating what they built. Other souls see themselves and feel shock, shame, regret, recognition of wasted opportunities, of harm caused, of potential unfulfilled. These souls linger here longer, processing the truth of what they became. But all souls eventually move forward. Because the law of recognition is not designed to trap you in shame. It's designed to show you the truth so you can take responsibility for it. So you can decide who you want to become next. The first law is recognition, the mirror that shows you what you actually built with your life. Not to condemn you, but to educate you. Not to trap you, but to free you to grow beyond what you were. Law 2, the law of attraction to loved ones. No soul crosses alone. After you face yourself in the mirror of truth, the second law activates. And this law is pure grace, pure comfort, pure love. The law of attraction to loved ones states that immediately after death, you are magnetically drawn to souls you loved during your life. And they are drawn to you. Love becomes a bridge across the threshold of death, ensuring that no soul crosses alone into the unknown. Edgar Cayce taught that love is the strongest force in the universe. Stronger than gravity. Stronger than time. Stronger even than death. And when you die, that love pulls you toward reunion with those you cherished. This might be your deceased spouse who's been waiting for you, your parents who died years before, your child who left too soon, your closest friends, even souls from past lives that you don't consciously remember. but your soul recognizes immediately. They appear to you in the moments after death, and their presence transforms what could be a terrifying transition into a homecoming. They comfort you. They explain what's happening. They help you process the shock of leaving your body. They remind you that death is not an ending, but a transformation. Casey documented thousands of cases where dying people in their final moments suddenly became alert and joyful. They would look at a corner of the room and say, "Mother is here," or "I see my husband," or "They're all waiting for me." And then they would die peacefully, often with smiles on their faces. This isn't hallucination. This is the law of attraction to loved ones activating. The veil between dimensions thinning enough in those final moments that the dying can perceive the souls gathering to receive them. Let me tell you about a case Casey documented. An elderly woman dying in a hospital. She'd lost her husband 20 years earlier and had grieved him every day since. She had no interest in living without him. She was ready to go. In her final hour, she suddenly sat up, her eyes wide and focused on something no one else could see. She said, "John is here. He's been waiting for me. He looks so young and handsome, the way he did when we first met. He's reaching out his hand." She extended her own hand toward empty air. "I'm coming, John. I'm finally coming home." And she died with absolute peace, her hand still extended as if someone was holding it. The nurses who witnessed this said they felt something in the room. A presence, a warmth, an energy that was unmistakably loving. They said it changed how they thought about death forever. This is the second law in action. Love as a magnet, love as a bridge, love as the force that ensures you don't face the great unknown alone. But the law of attraction to loved ones serves another purpose beyond comfort. It begins the healing process. Many people die with unresolved relationships, with words left unsaid, with forgiveness not offered or received. This law creates the opportunity for those resolutions. You meet your deceased loved ones not as you last saw them in physical form, often sick or elderly or damaged, but as they truly are now: healed, whole, radiant with the consciousness they've developed since their own deaths. And in those reunions, healing happens. Apologies are made. Forgiveness is given. Understanding replaces resentment. The tangled knots of human relationships begin to unravel in the presence of pure love. Casey emphasized that this law operates for everyone, even those who died believing they had no one who loved them, even those who lived isolated lives, because love transcends the boundaries of one lifetime. You have loved and been loved across many incarnations, and souls from those past connections will be there to receive you. The second law is the law of attraction to loved ones, the promise that love survives death, that reunion is real, that no matter how alone you felt in life, you will be welcomed home by those who love you when you cross the threshold. Law 3. The law of guidance by higher beings. Your spiritual teachers appear after the comfort of reunion with loved ones. The third law activates. And this is when your spiritual education truly begins. The law of guidance by higher beings states that once you've been received and comforted by those who love you, higher spiritual entities take over to guide your journey through the afterlife dimensions. These beings are not your friends or family. They're teachers, masters, guides who have evolved beyond the cycle of physical incarnation. Some traditions call them angels. Some call them ascended masters. Some call them enlightened beings. Edgar Casey simply called them Guides. Their purpose is specific: to prevent you from getting stuck in the lower astral planes due to earthly attachments, and to escort you to the dimension where you can properly review and learn from the life you just lived. Casey taught that the afterlife is not one place but many dimensions, each vibrating at different frequencies. Where you go depends on the spiritual development of your soul, and without guidance, newly deceased souls often get confused, trying to cling to the physical world they just left, or wandering in confusion through dimensions they don't understand. The guides prevent this. They appear to each soul in a form that soul can accept and understand. If you were Christian, they might appear as angels or as Christ himself. If you were Buddhist, they might appear as bodhisattvas. If you were atheist, they might simply appear as beings of light without religious symbolism. The form doesn't matter. What matters is that they're there, and they know exactly where you need to go next. One of Casey's readings described a man who died suddenly in an accident. He was completely disoriented, not understanding that he was dead. He kept trying to communicate with his living family, frustrated that they couldn't hear him. He was in danger of becoming what spiritualists call an earthbound spirit, trapped between dimensions by his refusal to accept his death. But his guides appeared. They were patient but firm. They helped him understand what had happened. They showed him that his physical body was gone, but his consciousness remained. They explained that his family couldn't hear him because they were vibrating at a different frequency now. And then they took him by the hand, so to speak, and led him away from the earth plane to the dimension where he could begin processing his life and planning his next steps. This is the work of the guides. They're like border patrol agents, making sure each soul gets to the right destination. They prevent souls from wandering lost. They answer questions. They provide orientation. They ensure the transition is as smooth as possible given the soul's level of development. Casey emphasized that these guides are beings of immense compassion. They don't judge. They don't condemn. They understand that every soul is on a journey and that some are more evolved than others. Their only goal is to help each soul move forward to the next stage of its education. The third law is the law of guidance by higher beings, the promise that you won't have to navigate the afterlife alone, that wise, compassionate teachers will appear to show you the way, to answer your questions, and to lead you to exactly where you need to be for your continued growth. Law 4. The Law of Life Review. Experiencing every consequence. Once your guides have escorted you to the proper dimension, the fourth law activates. And this is perhaps the most profound and transformative experience any soul can have. The Law of Life Review states that you will experience your entire life again, but from a completely different perspective. You will feel every impact you had on every person you encountered. You will experience not just your own emotions, but the emotions you caused in others. This is not watching a movie of your life. This is living it again. But this time, you become everyone else. Remember the time you spoke harshly to your child and saw the hurt in their eyes? In the life review, you don't just remember that moment. You become your child. You feel the exact pain those words caused, the confusion of being attacked by someone you love and trust, the wound that moment created in their developing psyche. Remember the time you showed unexpected kindness to a stranger who was having the worst day of their life. In the life review, you become that stranger. You feel the warmth of that kindness landing on their broken heart. You experience the ripple effect as that one act of compassion changed their entire day, which changed how they treated others, which spread outward in ways you never knew. Edgar Cayce described the life review as a complete reversal of perspective. During physical life, you experience everything from the inside out. You're the center of your own story. Everyone else is secondary. But in the life review, you become everyone else. You experience your entire life from the outside in. You feel what you made others feel. You understand the impact of every word, every action, every choice. Casey emphasized that this is not punishment. This is education. This is the universe's way of teaching you the fundamental truth of existence. We are all connected. What you do to another, you do to yourself. What you give, you receive. Not metaphorically, literally. In the life review, you experience this truth directly. One of Casey's most moving readings described a woman who had been cruel to her sister throughout their lives. Jealousy, competition, constant undermining and criticism. She justified it to herself as her sister deserving it, as her sister having things she didn't have, as evening the score. But in her life review, she became her sister. She felt every cutting remark land like a knife. She experienced the accumulation of cruelty across decades, how it warped her sister's self-esteem, how it damaged her sister's ability to trust or love. She felt the anguish of wanting connection with her sister but being constantly pushed away. The pain was excruciating. Not physical pain, but soul-level anguish. The recognition of harm she'd caused. The understanding that she'd poisoned a relationship that was meant to be sacred. But then something else happened. The review continued, and she experienced moments where she had shown kindness to her sister. Rare moments, but they existed. And when she became her sister receiving that kindness, she felt the desperate gratitude, the hope that maybe things could change, the love that persisted despite everything. She saw that her sister had never stopped loving her, had never given up hope for reconciliation. And that realization, combined with the pain of the harm she'd caused, created profound remorse, profound understanding, profound motivation to balance the karma she'd created. This is the purpose of the life review, not to torture souls with guilt, but to create genuine understanding of the consequences of their choices. To develop empathy, to show clearly what needs to be balanced, what needs to be healed, what lessons need to be learned in future incarnations. Casey taught that the life review is comprehensive. Every moment of your life is examined. Every interaction is felt from both sides. There are no secrets, no hidden actions, no forgotten cruelties or kindnesses. Everything is experienced, understood, and integrated. But he also emphasized that the review is done in an atmosphere of absolute love and support. Your guides are with you. They help you process what you're experiencing. They provide context. They help you understand why you made the choices you made, even as you feel the impact of those choices. The fourth law is the law of life review, the mirror that shows you not just what you did, but what you caused. Not to punish you, but to teach you the deepest truth of existence. We are all one, and every action creates ripples that return to their source. Law 5. The law of Vahuteb, karma and balance. Restoring harmony. After experiencing the life review, after understanding fully the impact of every choice you made, the fifth law activates. And this is where accountability becomes action. The law of karma and balance states that every disharmony you created must be restored. Every selfish act, every harm done, every opportunity for love that you rejected, thus create imbalances in the cosmic order. And those imbalances must be corrected. But here's what most people misunderstand about karma. It's not punishment. It's not cosmic revenge. It's restoration. It's the universe's commitment to ultimate harmony and justice. Think of karma like a musical instrument that's been knocked out of tune. The universe is a symphony, and every soul is an instrument. When you act selfishly, cruelly, dishonestly, you create discord. You knock yourself out of tune with the harmony of existence. Karma is the process of returning to harmony, of retuning the instrument, of restoring the balance you disrupted. Edgar Cayce taught that karma operates with perfect precision. Not one imbalance goes unnoticed. Not one act of harm goes unaddressed. But also, not one act of love goes unrewarded. The law of karma and balance works both ways. The harm you caused creates debt that must be repaid. But the love you gave creates credit that returns to you multiplied. Both are part of the same law. Both are equally real and equally inevitable. After your life review, when you fully understand what you created, you participate in planning how to restore balance. This is not imposed on you. You choose it. Because now you understand why it's necessary. If you harmed someone, you might choose to incarnate again with that soul, but in a reversed role. If you were the abuser, you might return as the abused to understand what you inflicted. If you were wealthy and cruel to the poor, you might return in poverty to develop compassion. If you were powerful and abused that power, you might return powerless to learn humility. Let me tell you about a case from Cayce's readings. A man who in his past life had been a slave owner in the American South. He'd been brutal, treating human beings as property, causing immense suffering. In his life review after that incarnation, he experienced every moment of suffering he'd inflicted on the people he enslaved. The humiliation, the physical pain, the psychological torture of being treated as less than human, the anguish of having families torn apart. The experience devastated him. He saw clearly the monstrous harm he'd caused, and he understood that this could not go unbalanced. So he chose. He chose to incarnate in the 20th century as a black man in the Jim Crow South. He chose to experience racial oppression, to feel what it's like to be denied basic human dignity, to understand from the inside what he had inflicted from the outside. But he also chose something else. He chose to become a civil rights activist, to use the understanding gained from being oppressed to fight oppression, to transform his karma from simple suffering into service, to not just balance the scales, but tip them toward justice. This is the wisdom of the law of karma and balance. It's not just about suffering to make up for harm. It's about learning, growing, and ultimately serving the evolution of all consciousness. Cayce emphasized that while karma is inevitable, it's not rigid. Grace can intervene. If you develop genuine remorse, genuine understanding, genuine commitment to change, the manner in which you balance your karma can be modified. Suffering can be replaced with service. Punishment can be transformed into teaching. But the balance must be restored. That is non-negotiable. What you created, you must uncreate. What you harmed, you must heal. What you took, you must return. This is not cruelty. This is justice. This is the universe ensuring that ultimately love wins, that ultimately harmony is restored. The fifth law is the law of karma and balance. The promise that nothing is forgotten, nothing is overlooked, and everything ultimately is made right. Not through punishment, but through the soul's own choice to restore what it disrupted. Law 6. The law of choice. Free will survives death. After understanding your karma and beginning to plan how to restore balance, the sixth law activates. And this law is perhaps the most empowering of all. The law of choice states that even after death, your free will remains intact. You are not a passive recipient of whatever the universe decides for you. You are an active participant, a co-creator of your eternal journey. Edgar Cayce taught that free will is the greatest gift the Creator gave to consciousness. It's what makes us divine. It's what allows us to evolve, to learn, to become. And death does not revoke this gift. After your life review, after understanding your karma, you face choices. Real choices with real consequences. You can choose to reincarnate immediately, eager to balance your karma and continue your growth. Or you can choose to rest in the spiritual dimensions, processing what you learned, preparing more carefully for your next incarnation. You can choose to work with the same soul group you've been incarnating with for millennia, continuing to play different roles for each other's evolution. Or you can choose to join a different soul group, to bring fresh energy and new lessons into your journey. You can choose a difficult next life that will accelerate your growth through challenge. Or you can choose an easier incarnation that allows you to integrate and consolidate what you've already learned. You can even choose to become a guide yourself to help newly deceased souls navigate the transition you just completed. To serve rather than incarnate. To teach rather than learn. Every soul has these choices. And the choices you make determine the trajectory of your eternal evolution. But here's the crucial difference between choice during life and choice after death. After death, you choose with full knowledge of the consequences. You see the bigger picture. You understand the patterns. You know what you need to learn and why. During physical life, you choose blindly, operating from ego and limited perspective. After death, you choose from soul-level consciousness, operating from wisdom and expanded awareness. Casey documented a reading for a soul that had just completed a difficult incarnation marked by poverty and illness. In the afterlife, this soul was given a choice: reincarnate into a wealthy family and live comfortably, or return to challenge again to accelerate growth. The soul chose challenge. Because now, from the perspective of expanded consciousness, it could see that comfort leads to complacency, while difficulty leads to evolution. It chose growth over ease, meaning over pleasure. And that choice, made freely with full awareness, determined the next chapter of its eternal story. This law also addresses one of humanity's deepest questions. What about those who die without spiritual knowledge? What about atheists or people who never considered the afterlife? The law of choice ensures that everyone gets exactly what they're ready for. If you die believing consciousness ends at death, you'll have the experience of void for as long as you need it before guides gently wake you to the truth. If you die believing in a specific religious heaven, you'll experience that until you're ready to move beyond the limitations of that belief into larger truth. No one is forced to evolve faster than they are capable of evolving. No one is pushed into understanding they are not ready to receive. The law of choice honors the free will and current development level of every soul. The sixth law is the law of choice. The promise that you remain sovereign even after death, that you are always, eternally, the author of your own journey, that the universe presents options, but you decide which option to choose. Law 7. The law of grace and love, the ultimate safety net. We've reached the seventh and final law, and this law transcends all the others. This law is the foundation beneath everything, the safety net that ensures no soul is ever truly lost. The law of grace and love states that no matter what karma you've created, no matter what harm you've done, no matter how far you've fallen from your divine nature, you are still loved. Completely, unconditionally, eternally. And grace is always available to transform your journey. Edgar Cayce taught that while karma is real and must be balanced, love is more real. While choices have consequences, grace can transform those consequences. While justice is inevitable, mercy is more powerful than justice. This is not a loophole. This is not a way to avoid accountability. The law of grace and love doesn't erase your karma or excuse your actions. What it does is provide the energy, the support, the divine assistance necessary to transform your journey from punishment into healing. Think of it this way. Karma says you must learn your lessons and balance what you've disrupted. Grace says you don't have to do it alone. That divine love will support you, guide you, strengthen you through every step of the process. Cayce described grace as the ultimate reality of existence. That beneath all the laws, all the karma, all the choices, there is one fundamental truth. You are loved by the source of all existence. And that love will never give up on you, never abandon you, never condemn you to eternal suffering. No matter how many lifetimes it takes, no matter how many mistakes you make, no matter how far you wander from truth. The law of grace and love promises that you will eventually find your way home, because you are eternally held in divine love. One of Cayce's most powerful readings described a soul that had created immense harm across multiple lifetimes. Violence, cruelty, absolute disregard for the suffering of others. In the afterlife, facing the life review, experiencing all that harm from the victim's perspectives, this soul was overwhelmed with remorse and despair. It said, "I can never balance this. The harm I've caused is too great. I'm beyond redemption." And in that moment of absolute despair, the guides revealed the law of grace and love. They showed this soul that while the karma was real and would need to be addressed, the fundamental truth was greater than the karma. The truth that this soul, despite everything, was still loved, still valued, still capable of transformation. They said, "Your journey back to love will be long. It will require many incarnations of service and sacrifice. But you are not alone. We will guide you. Grace will support you. And eventually, you will restore harmony. Eventually, you will remember what you truly are beneath all the harm you've caused. You are a child of the divine, and you can never be so lost that love cannot find you." This revelation transformed the soul's despair into determination. It committed to the long journey of karmic restoration, not out of fear of punishment, but out of love, out of desire to honor the grace that was being extended. This is the power of the seventh law. It transforms the entire journey from a legal proceeding into a healing process, from punishment into education, from condemnation into redemption. Cayce taught that grace operates through sincere desire to change. When a soul genuinely wants to grow, to love, to serve, to become what it was created to be, grace flows in to support that desire. Obstacles are removed. Lessons are accelerated. Support appears from unexpected sources. But grace must be accepted. It's always offered, but souls must open themselves to receive it. And that opening comes through humility. through honest recognition of what you've become and genuine desire to become something better. The seventh law is the law of grace and love, the ultimate safety net. The promise that beneath all the karma, all the lessons, all the challenges, you are held in infinite love. And that love will never let you fall so far that you cannot rise again. Conclusion: 28 kustu under 30 pounds. We've journeyed through the seven spiritual laws that every soul faces after death according to Edgar Cayce's profound teachings. The law of recognition, where you see yourself without masks for the first time. The law of attraction to loved ones, ensuring no soul crosses alone. The law of guidance by higher beings, providing wise teachers for your journey. The law of life review, experiencing every consequence of every choice. The law of karma and balance, restoring harmony to what you disrupted. The law of choice, preserving your free will even in death. And finally, the law of grace and love, the ultimate truth that transcends all other laws. These are not religious doctrines. They're not cultural beliefs. According to Cayce, they're universal principles that operate for every soul, regardless of what you believed during life, regardless of which religion you practiced or whether you practiced any religion at all. They're the order of the afterlife, the structure that ensures every soul gets exactly what it needs to continue its eternal evolution toward love, wisdom, and ultimate reunion with the divine. Understanding these laws changes everything about how you live right now. Because you're not preparing for some distant, unknowable future. You're preparing for a precisely ordered experience. An experience you can optimize by how you live today. Live with integrity, knowing you'll face yourself in the mirror of recognition. Love deeply, knowing those connections will be the bridge that carries you across death's threshold. Open yourself to guidance, knowing wise beings are already watching over your journey. Act with compassion, knowing you'll experience every impact you have on others. Seek to restore rather than create harm, knowing perfect balance is inevitable. Exercise your free will wisely, knowing every choice shapes your eternal trajectory. And above all, choose love, knowing that grace is the deepest truth of existence. Death is not chaos. It's not random. It's not the end. It's a school, a precisely designed system for transforming consciousness from what it has been into what it can become. And you're already enrolled. You've always been enrolled. The question is not whether you'll face these seven laws. You will. Every soul does. The question is, will you face them having lived consciously, or will you face them with shock and regret at opportunities wasted? Choose wisely. Live fully. Love completely. Because the seven laws are waiting, and they will reveal, with perfect precision and infinite compassion, exactly what you built with this precious life you're living right now. Thank you for this journey through the spiritual laws that govern death. If this has changed how you see the afterlife, share it and subscribe to continue exploring the profound mysteries of consciousness, death, and eternal existence. See you in the next video.